A bureaucrat signed a piece of paper and accidentally built the biggest food empire on Earth. Summer 1945. The war is almost over. And somewhere in the United States, a 43-year-old paper cup salesman in a Red Cross uniform is waiting, just like a million other men, to go home. His name is Ray Kroc. He never fired a shot in anger. He never saw the beaches of Normandy or the jungles of the Pacific. By every measure of military glory, he is completely unremarkable. But his unit gets demobilized early, a few months ahead of schedule. A clerical decision, a logistical footnote. And that footnote, that single, forgettable administrative decision, will eventually feed 69 million people a day. Here's how it happened. Ray Kroc's relationship with war started long before 1945. In 1917, he was 15 years old. The First World War was consuming Europe. And like a lot of restless teenage boys, Ray Kroc lied about his age to enlist in the Red Cross Ambulance Corps. He never made it to France. The armistice came before his unit shipped out. He came home having seen nothing, but having learned everything about himself that mattered. He was impatient, relentless. He needed to be part of something. Fast forward, December 1941, Pearl Harbor. America enters the war, and Kroc, now pushing 40, already too old for frontline service, volunteers again. Red Cross, ambulance driver, non-combat support. He spends the war largely stateside, no medals, no combat, no glory. Just a middle-aged man in uniform doing his small part in the largest military operation in human history. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Among his fellow Red Cross volunteers was a man named Walt Disney. Yes, that Walt Disney. Two future American icons orbiting each other inside the anonymous machinery of wartime service. But Walt Disney isn't the point of this story. The point is what happens when the war ends and what Ray Kroc does with the years that follow. Because when his discharge papers came through in the summer of 1945, earlier than expected, ahead of schedule, Kroc walked back into civilian life with something most returning veterans didn't have: time. And he had absolutely no idea what to do with it. For the next 9 years, Ray Kroc does something that, in hindsight, looks a lot like failing. He goes back to selling paper cups. He's in his 40s. His contemporaries are settled. Careers, routines, lives neatly ordered. Kroc has a wife, a daughter, and a gnawing, bone-deep certainty that he hasn't found the thing yet. That whatever he's supposed to build, it isn't this. By the early 1950s, he's moved on from cups to a machine called the multi-mixer. It blends 5 milkshakes at once. It's a good product in a booming post-war America, where roadside diners and drive-ins are multiplying across every highway. Kroc is good at selling it, but he isn't transforming the world. He's just grinding. Then, in 1954, something happens. He's reviewing his sales records when he notices an anomaly. A single hamburger stand, one location in San Bernardino, California, has ordered 8 multi-mixers, 8 machines, 40 simultaneous milkshakes from one restaurant.
Kroc stops. He stares at that number. And then he does something that will change history. He books a flight to California. What he finds when he gets there is almost impossible to describe to someone who didn't live in 1954. Because what Richard and Maurice McDonald had built wasn't just a restaurant, it was a system. A stripped-down menu, Burgers, fries, shakes, assembly line preparation, 30-second service, prices so low that working families could eat there without planning for it. And the line never stopped moving. Kroc stood in the California sunshine, watching those customers, and something clicked inside him so loudly you almost feel like you should be able to hear it across 70 years of history. He didn't just see a restaurant, he saw an army.
Not yet, though. Not quite. Because here's what Kroc understood, that the McDonald brothers themselves had missed. He saw that this system could be copied perfectly, everywhere. Every city, every highway, every suburb. Not one restaurant, not 10, thousands. By April 1954, he had his franchise agreement. By 1955, his first location opened in Des Plaines, Illinois. He brought to the hamburger the same obsessive standardization the U.S. military used to supply 12 million men across 2 ocean theaters of war. Exact patty weight, exact fry temperature, exact seconds of toasting per bun. He had learned something in uniform, even if he'd never fired a rifle. Logistics win wars. And by 1958, McDonald's had sold its 100 millionth hamburger. But here's the question that nobody asks. What if he'd never gotten that time? This is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because the most important thing Ray Kroc ever did, the decision that made all of it possible, wasn't a decision he made at all. It was made for him. Military demobilization in 1945 ran on a point system. Combat duty, length of service, wounds received, decorations earned. Support personnel like Kroc, no combat, no medals, short service, were first out the door. Move the timeline 6 months, maybe even 3. Kroc re-enters civilian life in late 1945 or early 1946. He's older, more worn down. The post-war restaurant boom is already beginning to peak. The multi-mixer's sales window is narrowing. The specific, precise chain of events that puts him on a flight to San Bernardino in 1954, it has too many links. Change one, and the whole chain breaks. The McDonald's brothers find a different franchising partner, or no partner at all, or the wrong one. And here's what that means. Not just no McDonald's. No McDonald's means the entire template for fast food franchising, the supply chains, the agricultural systems, the suburban development patterns, the labor markets built around the Golden Arches. All of it either doesn't exist or looks completely different. 69 million people a day, eating somewhere else, or not eating at all. Kroc understood this. In his autobiography, Grinding It Out, he wrote with the hard clarity of a man who'd lived enough near misses to know what luck looked like up close. He knew the difference between victory and failure was often not genius or courage. It was timing. And his timing had been handed to him by a bureaucrat who would never know his name. But here's the part of this story that actually gets me. Because Kroc's early demobilization gave him time. But time alone doesn't build empires. Plenty of men came home early and did nothing remarkable with the years that followed. What Kroc did was see. He saw it in the multi-mixer orders. He saw it in the McDonald brothers' parking lot. He saw it most clearly in the faces of the families, lining up at that walk-up window in San Bernardino. Men who had fought a war that Kroc had barely touched. Men who had come home to GI Bill mortgages, station wagons, and children.
Men who had lived through enough chaos and uncertainty to last 10 lifetimes. These men wanted sameness. They wanted to know that the burger in Des Plaines would taste exactly like the burger in Phoenix, that the fries would be hot, that the service would be fast, that nothing would be uncertain or unpredictable or surprising. They had had enough of the world being dangerous. Kroc gave them certainty. He systematized comfort. He industrialized familiarity. And he scaled it with military precision across a country that was desperate, absolutely desperate, for something that felt stable. By 1961, he bought out the McDonald brothers entirely for $2.7 million. Kroc would later call it the greatest deal he ever made. The brothers called it the worst deal of their lives. McDonald's would go on to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. By 1963, a new McDonald's was opening every single day. By 1965, the company went public. By the time Ray Kroc died, in January 1984, there were over 7,500 locations worldwide. Today, over 40,000 in more than 100 countries. All of it tracing back through a long, improbable chain of cause and effect to a discharge order signed in the summer of 1945. Ray Kroc never got a medal. He never got a commendation. His military file is thin, unremarkable. The record of a man who served without distinction in a conflict that barely touched him. But his legacy reshaped the physical surface of the planet. He died on January 14, 1984, in San Diego, California. He was 81 years old. He left behind a fortune of $600 million. The Ronald McDonald House Charities, operating across 64 countries. A corporation employing nearly 2 million people. And a set of golden arches that, by some measures, are more universally recognized than any symbol on Earth. He also left behind a lesson. One that military historians understand better than anyone. The decisions that change history are rarely the ones that feel momentous. They're not the speeches, not the battles, not the bold strategic gambits. They're the quiet orders, the paperwork, the logistical footnotes processed by clerks who will never know what they set in motion. A bureaucrat signed Ray Kroc's demobilization papers a few months early. He went home. He sold milkshake machines. And then, because he had the time and because he could see, he fed the world. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to America and WWII Stories as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life. Think about that the next time you pull through a drive-thru. Someone's paperwork made that possible.